Okay, folks, so it's about 5 past now, so we're going to get started with the presentation, and as people continue to come in, I'll just reach out and let them know where we're at throughout the day. But we would like to welcome you to the second community engagement session for the proposed Weavers Mountain Wind Energy Project. Thank you for joining us on St. Patrick's Day as well, and hope that some of you are wearing green at home. So we just have a few rules of engagement of how this is going to work tonight. We do ask that your name does appear correctly. It's fairly easy to change and update. If you do need support, simply type into the chat and either myself or one of our other panelists this evening will provide technical support. You will note that all participants are muted. So if you do have a question throughout, we ask that you type it into the chat. There's also a question and answer function. I will post in the chat within the next few minutes so that it appears as a pop-up and that folks can access it that way. I'll be acting as the moderator tonight, and what will happen is I'll read out all questions in the order that they're received during the question and answer period. And if we do find that we need any sort of clarification or follow up with the person who asked, we'll unmute you and continue the conversation verbally. So any question that does not get answered within the allotted time tonight will be answered in a written format, and all answered questions as well as unanswered questions in this time will be posted to the project website, and we'll also reach out over Facebook and any other means necessary to direct folks to those answers. Again, just as a reminder, this presentation as well as the chat and Q&A functions will be recorded in the form of a transcript, and we'll be posting again those questions and answers when ready. So today we want to take a little moment here and go through some acknowledgement. We will be talking about our proposed Weavers Mountain Wind Energy Project, which is in unceded and surrendered Mi'kmaq, which is the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. So today's events, right now we're still having a few folks sign in. We're going through the rules of engagement and acknowledgement. We're also then going to introduce the rest of the key team members who are on this webinar this evening. Then we'll go through more of a formal presentation. That presentation, which you see tonight, will also be posted to the project website, as well as links to the presentation will be sent out to anybody who requests. And once the presentation is complete, we think it's going to take about 30 minutes. Then we'll open up into that question and answer period where folks can type into the chat or into the Q&A box, and I'll be moderating through that. So I'd just like to introduce you to our team. So speaking here is me. I'm Sarah Rosenblatt. I'm one of the development managers at SWEB, and I'll also be acting as the moderator for tonight's event. And we thought it was important to let you folks know where we are. So I'm currently sitting in my home just outside of Halifax. And next we have Jason Parisi. He is our senior development manager, and he will be one of the presenters this evening. He is also located in Halifax. Mason Baker is our technical manager, and he will be the second presenter this evening as well, going through this PowerPoint. He's also based in Halifax. Michael Carey is another development manager who is on with us tonight, and he'll be here to provide specific support on topics that come up in the question and answer period. And he's also based here in the province, just outside of Halifax. Stefan Karkulik is our CAO, and he is online again to do Q&A support in more specific topics, and he is currently based in Montreal and Quebec. Billy Hannafin, who is our GIS technician, is also on for Q&A support and any sort of technical side questions, and he is based in Halifax. And lastly, we have Kate Monroe, who is our communications and administrative coordinator, and she is also on for Q&A support, and she is also based in Halifax. So with that, I will pass this over to the presenters this evening, and they will finish out the presentation.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sarah, and thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to blow through this pretty quickly so Jason Parisi can get into the meat of the presentation. But just a bit of background on who we are. I'll start with the parent company, Web, located in Austria in Europe. They've been around for 20 to 25 years, kind of really in on the ground level of renewables. Citizen owned with over 4,500 investors. Group wide, we've got 100 projects plus in development spanning mainland Europe, Canada, and the United States. Our MO is really just to develop the project from grassroots, oversee the construction, and then continue to operate the project for its 20 to 30-year lifetime, depending on the area. This kind of differs from some other development companies who some may just develop the project and then sell it to a third-party operator, or vice versa. They may purchase the project from one of those developers and then just come in at the tail end. We will be developing and operating the project obviously throughout. So if you're dealing with us, you really are just dealing with one party for the lifetime of the project. Fleet wide, we've got about 544 megawatts in operation. And the SWEB portion of that, which is the North American arm of the Web company, is about 67 megawatts in operation. And as Sarah noted, we're all based in Halifax. So this is our North American HQ for both Canada operations as well as American. We do have a small satellite office in Worcester, Massachusetts, with a few people there. But really the bulk of the work, even for our projects located in northeastern United States, comes from the Halifax office. And our ML is really community-oriented projects, so getting the local community on board, seeing how we can more seamlessly integrate the project into the community and see what benefits we can offer throughout. Yeah. Next slide, thank you. So this is an overview of our operational projects in the Maritimes. You'll see a lot of smaller scale projects throughout basically the entirety of the province of Nova Scotia. Those range in size from 1 turbine to 4 turbines, and those were developed as part of the COMFIT program. Additionally, we have an 18 megawatt project in operation that was constructed a couple years ago. That's the Wisconsin project near about 45 minutes outside Moncton, and that is in partnership with Woodstock First Nation and developed through the LRES program there. And we, of course, continue to develop wind and solar projects throughout the Northeast Maritimes as well as the Northeastern United States. So something I just want to touch on quickly is I have mentioned that we do develop throughout the Northeastern United States, but all of those projects, so just of note, we have 7.5 megawatts of solar projects in operation in Massachusetts, as well as by September, 30 megawatts of wind in Maine. That is all developed and operated by us out of the Halifax office. So we're effectively outsourcing our expertise to the Northeastern United States and effectively sustaining the jobs here in the Halifax office through those projects, which is pretty cool. But yeah, some more info on the COMFIT program. So this is a now retired program kind of used to spur research and development into a very young wind industry back then. We have 20 wind turbines throughout the province as part of this program, and they're in partnership with Scotian Wind Inc. and Scotian Windfields, and all of those feature various benefits to the local community in different capacities. So as I said, those projects were developed through the Community Feed-in Tariff program with partnership with the local community and organizations, and these are some of those organizations. So you can see a picture on the left. We sponsored a Halifax Hawks Adam A hockey team, which is pretty cool. A few of us grew up playing minor hockey, so that's special for us. And then yeah, some more organizations here throughout the province. I won't bore you with the list of them, but we've got partnerships that run from the South Shore all the way to Cape Breton.
Great, thanks, Mason. Appreciate that. So yeah, I just wanted to touch base with the community again. We had a really great meeting back in the fall, specific to this project, but just as a reminder of why we're proposing the Weavers Mountain Wind Project and in the area. Nova Scotia is in the process of a fairly aggressive transition to renewable energy to replace a lot of our old coal and natural gas fired assets here in the province. So as part of that, this current procurement is for 350 megawatts of new transmission connected renewable low impact electricity solutions. So primarily wind and solar. There is a lot of impetus to see these projects bring on partnerships with local First Nation communities. And the intention is to have these projects online before the end of 2025. So about 3.5 years out from where we stand today. And that's sort of the crux of why all these projects are being proposed in the province this year and next year. Next slide, please. So the proposed project, the Weavers Mountain Wind Project, is slated to be between 40 and 100 megawatts. So there is a program cap of 100 megawatts, so no projects will exceed that capacity size. At present, we haven't secured or identified the exact turbine that we'll propose for this project, but that will be decided fairly soon over the next quarter. So at present, we're looking at turbines with nameplate capacities between 4.5 to 6 megawatts. And that means that with the project range and the turbine size, we're looking at a range of 7 to 22 turbines, depending on the final capacity of the project. It's located essentially at the nexus of the two counties, Antigonish and Pictou, and it will be located primarily on private land with some crown land in some areas of the project site. And just in general for the community, in terms of understanding where we plan these projects, it's essentially predicated upon being proximal to the Nova Scotia Power electrical grid, strong wind resource on site. So we do have wind measurement devices on site to help us understand the wind resource here. We tend to focus on areas that are sparsely populated, so low receptors, and then try to work in areas that have already been impacted by forestry. So all of our sites here that we're proposing in Nova Scotia are located on previously forested areas. So there has been some previous disturbance, and we're working with existing road infrastructure and cleared areas as much as possible to keep these sites fairly benign in terms of our construction footprint. And next slide. So our current assumption in terms of a project area, you can see here that the county line, it's not shown on the map, but it does run essentially just west of Kepik Road. And we are south of Highway 104. This is the general project area. And within this area, there'll be between 7 and 22 turbine pads, each of which would probably take up just around a hectare after construction is completed. Next slide, please. So far, since we started developing this site back in 2020 up until now, we've done a fair bit of work with respect to wind data collection. So we do have wind data collection and instrumentation on site to get a better sense of the wind resource here. We've conducted a number of different environmental assessment field surveys on site since the spring of last year. And we will continue to do so throughout the spring of this year and into the fall, and upon which time we'll look to obtain an EA registration and also look to seek an EA approval, assuming that there are no significant impacts from the project expected. Our stakeholder and First Nation community engagement has been ongoing since 2020, but really has taken form in 2021, and we'll continue to engage those communities and other stakeholders that we identify throughout this process, right up through construction and into the operations phase. So there'll always be a contact from our group out of the Halifax office and our operations team locally that will be able to take questions and field concerns from the community if there are any, but also to work and collaborate with the community in a safe manner during the construction operations phase. Next slide. So the field efforts that we're conducting this year as a continuation of what we did last year is really to give us a good sense of baseline data from our site. And then we'll look to assess potential impacts by way of a third party. So all the field work and the environmental assessment process, we hire third parties to do that work. It's a good neutral way to conduct this type of assessment work. And once that's completed, we'll register that environmental assessment, and those impact assessments will be reviewed by Nova Scotia Environment, among other provincial and federal agencies if necessary. And that process will be ongoing, and we'll continue to engage and host public meetings with the community based on that documentation. When the time comes, we'll notify the community of those meetings. So here we just wanted to take a step forward in terms of returning some comments on previous feedback that we've had. And some of this feedback is a bit more common for other projects that we have in our portfolio. But some of these questions and comments are sort of ubiquitous for any wind project in the Maritime region. The first item is snowmobiles and trails. So there are a lot of ATV and snowmobile users in some of these areas that have, a lot of forest cover, a lot of trail systems, and so on. So what we've typically done for projects that do have a lot of traditional sort of use that from local community members, that would be snowmobiling or ATV use, is that we work with those clubs to ensure that we understand their needs throughout the different seasons. And usually for these larger sites, we would only plow during the winter time when necessary, and would sort of do that in sort of collaboration with the snowmobile club and other trail users to ensure that folks are aware of when we'll be on site to do so. And if necessary, we would certainly explore alternative means for site access that's feasible for us as well. During the construction phase, there can be concerns about increased traffic in the area. It is probably important to note that we will have a traffic management plan in place, and we'll collaborate and engage with the municipality and the community at a sort of a pre-construction point to ensure that folks are aware of when those higher traffic seasons will be, so that alternative routes are known to the group and the community as well. And we'll work very closely with the community to ensure that turbine delivery and all the construction processes are done in a safe and efficient and effective manner. Turbine noise is also a fairly prevalent concern from local stakeholders. Fortunately, in Nova Scotia, we do still have a fair bit of onshore wind availability in terms of land. So we've always employed as a company especially in Eastern Canada, a 1 kilometer or greater setback from all homes. Not that there's a concern of noise at that distance, but it does sort of ensure that we are far exceeding local requirements here in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Ontario as well. So pre-construction and post-construction will complete acoustic modeling for the site, and all that information will be done by a third party and collected by a third party, and the analysis will be done by a third party as well. And we'll post that information to our EA registration website through Nova Scotia Environment once it's made available. The community can review it and provide comments and so on at that time. So I would expect that a lot of this will be posted sometime in the next 3 to 6 months on the Nova Scotia Environment website. Light pollution and aeronautical lighting systems. This concern is a bit more common from my experience in Southern Ontario, but what we will tend to do is work directly with Transport Canada, and they will identify what impact these units will have on flight paths and things like that. So for every project that we have in Nova Scotia, we have lighting installed as per Transport Canada requirements. So that same approach will be used for this project as well. But in terms of light impact and shadow flicker impact, those are slightly different elements of a project, and we'll have a third party conduct modeling for those specific elements, and those will be posted with the environmental assessment as well. Decommissioning of units is often a question that comes up from community members. I think in some instances there are legacy units that weren't decommissioned in other states and provinces as well. As part of this procurement, one of the great things that's been set up with the Nova Scotia Power folks in terms of our contract for Southern Power is that there will be a decommissioning plan required by the program and Nova Scotia Power. And typically we'll see a decommissioning requirement in the environmental assessment and at the municipal level. So there are a few different tranches of obligations for us to meet. What's probably a bit more committal is the 20,000 per megawatt that we're due to post with our contract. So there's up to about $1 million, just under 1.5 million set aside at the project onset for decommissioning of the units at the end. These units do have a lot of terminal value as well. There are a lot of raw materials of high value in a wind turbine. So there is value in decommissioning and recycling the units if that's the direction that the project goes at that time. So moving on from some of the questions that we've received, we want to talk a bit about project benefits. And one really great thing about the way this program's been structured is it really underscores benefits to local community members, underrepresented communities, First Nation communities, and so forth. With any wind project, typically you'll see a direct and indirect benefits. So direct benefits would be things like hiring local labor, services, materials. Indirect is, you know, if a construction crew is using a lot of hotel rooms, for example, and buying services and buying meals and things like that, those are a bit more indirect. We anticipate and plan to have benefits spread across various stakeholders for our projects, and First Nation communities included. We've always seen a really positive impact on local businesses, employment opportunities for the local labor force and the local services force. There's always tax revenue associated with these projects that's paid out to the municipalities, and the provincial government and federal governments would benefit from any use of Crown land in these areas because there will be payments made from the project for the use of those lands. Lastly, I think kind of what's most important is sort of the more macrocosmic benefit of reducing our impact on the environment from our energy system here in Nova Scotia. We've traditionally been a very coal-heavy province, and this is an exciting transition towards a lower carbon dioxide intensive grid by way of adding wind and solar to the grid over the next few years. Lastly, we have modeled the project yield, and roughly speaking, we're thinking that the project can produce enough power for up to 20,000 homes. So that would obviously fluctuate each year depending on how productive the project is, but that's a general overview. Last slide in terms of project information is just generally the timeline. So all projects of this sort are broken into the development, construction, and then operational phase. So we're sitting in this blue set of different task items, and this is not an exhaustive list. It just gives you a bit of a high-level overview of sort of the major buckets that we push projects through before they start construction. So a lot of these have been completed already. This project, once it's awarded a contract through the rate-based procurement or Green Choice program, will sort of push through into detailed project design, the ordering of turbine units and so forth. And then we'll get the project ready for construction. And we anticipate that this project could be ready for construction as early 2024. And we anticipate a commercial operation date at the end of 2025. So that means that we'd be producing electrons and putting power onto the grid. That's it from my side. Thanks, folks.
Okay, so just following through in the chat here, to those who did request the presentation via email, it has been sent. It's a fairly large file, so I wanted to give a few minutes here. If it doesn't land in your inbox or inboxes, please let us know in the chat or in the Q&A session as well. We don't have any current comments or questions at this time, but we'll remain on here, and I'll keep monitoring the chat as well as the Q&A to see if anything does come up. And if there's any slides as well that you would like us to return to, if you just want a second glance, please just let us know and we'd be happy to go back as well. Okay, so we do have a question here. So this question here is from Nancy. Did I understand that the project will be on the west side of Quebec Road? How much will it be in Antigonish County and how much will it be in Pictou? So Mason or Jason, I'll lean towards one of you folks to answer this.
Yeah, I can take that, and the team can follow up as needed. But we do have a sizable portion of land signed up that spans both Pictou and Antigonish. So it's tough to say the exact percentages, but I think most likely some will be located in Antigonish and some will be located in Pictou. It's hard to say without doing the final environmental studies to really determine if there's anything on the ground that we should be avoiding when placing turbines. So the final turbine placement, of course, comes at a later date, but right now the plan is for at least some infrastructure in both counties. And I'll let the town or the team chime in if they have anything else.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We can move on to Nancy's question, second question.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second question here is, will there be a Mi'kmaq ecological survey? And Jason, I'll pass that one to you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Nancy, for asking that. For about 2 to 3 months, we've been engaging Member 2 Geomatics on setting up some scoping for Mi'kmaq ecological knowledge study. So we think that study, that group is fairly busy at the moment, but we anticipate that whole process will start for this project in the early summer, and then we'll probably take some time to finish up just in terms of the interviews and the site visits and so on. But we are in the process of having all that planned and set up for this year. So, and that's for all of our projects in our portfolio. Thanks, Nancy.
So we have a question in here from Ian. He has asked, where are you in terms of the development agreement process with the municipalities? So Jason, I'm going to pass this one as well to you.
Yeah, we've been in contact with Pictou and Antigonish counties independently since the summer of 2021 on this project, and have reviewed the local requirements and so on. We typically would apply for those permits once the project is a bit more progressed and the layout has been what I would call crystallized. So that should be something that comes up over the next couple of months, and we'll look to establish those permit applications and then submit them sometime over the summer months.
Great, thanks, Jay. We've got another question here. Your website speaks a lot about community partners. Who are they?
Maybe I can try to take this one. So there's two types of community partners, if you may call them so. One type is community partners that actually do have a share in the project, so that will be owning the project together with us. We previously worked a lot with municipalities that showed interest in owning part of the project. Unfortunately, that possibility was taken from us in the program. So the program administrator and the government of Nova Scotia decided that the municipalities wouldn't be able anymore to invest in those projects. However, we are currently in negotiation with First Nation groups that showed interest in owning a stake in our project. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we're not yet able to disclose details on that, but we will inform you as soon as the ink is dry and as soon as we can disclose that information. The second type of community partner that we refer to are groups that represent what they call underrepresented groups in the program, and that would receive a share of the revenue deriving from our project. So basically, the project will give funds to certain nonprofit organizations that put those funds to good use. And we are currently working with three groups. One group is, again, First Nation group. Second group is an advocate for women in the field of renewable energy. And the third group is an advocate for the African Nova Scotian community. We'll post the details on that as well on the website as soon as all the details are known. So stay tight. But yeah, we have put aside a significant amount of money that will come from that project that will benefit those groups. And then in addition, Jason, we are working with local groups of the local community that have projects in the area and that could use some funds from our projects. And obviously, we would like to support those groups as well directly, right, like neighboring our project. I hope that answered it.
Great, thanks, Stefan. So we have another question that's come in here. I saw on the RBP timeline that March 14th was the date for submitting intent to bid. Would it be fair to assume that you've submitted an intent to bid? So I can answer this one. Yes, we have submitted an intent to bid for this project.
Maybe just to mention, the intent to bid is non-binding. So the bid is due in early May. So until that, all the details of our projects can be changed. So the intent to bid is really just for the procurement administrator kind of to get an idea of how many bids the procurement administrator will receive. But yes, we did submit an intent to bid, correct.
So the next question that we have is, what will be the responsibility or liability of the project partners? For example, if there were accidents, forest fires, etc.
I'll try to answer that, not practicing law, but basically, if we do something that is not correct, we will be liable for it. So the project will be liable for it, right? I don't know, if we start a forest fire and it's our fault, I think it's fair to say, not being a lawyer, that yes, we will be liable for that. Exactly the same way that anyone else would be liable for something that he or she is doing, and that has a negative impact on the environment or on other people. So yes, if the question is like what happens if there's an accident or something, yes, obviously we will be held responsible. Depends on what exactly will happen and how, but also maybe just to mention, we will have insurance in place. So we partly already have insurance in place. So all those big projects, they have millions of dollars coverage in insurance should something happen. So if someone is afraid that the project owner, the proponent itself, is, I don't know, unwilling or unable to pay, what we should always keep in mind is that those projects, they are required contractually to have insurance coverage for all types of incidents that could happen.
Great, Stefan, and I'm going to target this next question as well to you, and then Jay, you can probably come in and follow up after. So if, heaven forbid, SWEB went out of business before decommissioning, would any of the partners be liable for the costs?
So I'll try to explain that one, and that's a very good question, because this question came up in Nova Scotia in connection with other projects as well, not necessarily SWEB projects, but of other developers. And we are contractually, so we will have an agreement in place with Nova Scotia Power, and this agreement with Nova Scotia Power requires that we do decommission the turbines after their lifetime. Nova Scotia Power will have security, or we are obliged to have security in place with Nova Scotia Power. So basically we give money or a bank guarantee, a letter of credit to Nova Scotia Power. And if we want that money back, we will have to fulfill our obligations. So if we don't fulfill our obligations under the PPA with Nova Scotia Power, and this PPA requires us to decommission the projects, then we take the risk of not seeing that money ever again. So maybe that's something that is to be considered. Let me see again what the question said. If there's something else. Yeah. So, and I mean, generally speaking, the owner of the project again would be liable or responsible for everything we do, right? So we hope that with that security in place, that the community can rest assured that we will decommission those turbines. But we appreciate and understand that this has been an issue in other parts of the province in the past. And what maybe is also important to mention is that, as Sarah and Mason mentioned earlier, we have our North American headquarters in Halifax. So our employees are around. You can call us if you have questions, if there is an issue. We definitely don't plan to, operate those turbines for 25 years and then disappear because we do our business here. We have our headquarters here. We are based in Halifax. So we hope that that this gives also some confidence to the community that we will definitely decommission those turbines. And maybe also what and Jason talked about that already, those turbines, they have a value. The raw material of those turbines is significant. So we decommission turbines, for example, in Europe, where we received money to have someone pick up our turbines to decommission them for us. It really depends on the price for certain raw materials at the time, but those turbines, they have a significant value. So it's another reason why we hope that the community can rest assured that yes, we will decommission those turbines. I stop here.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. So the next question that we have here is back on to the local nonprofit organizations getting some benefits from the profit. Is there a way to apply to get these funds as a community nonprofit that will be affected? So maybe Jason or Stefan, I'm not sure which one of you wants to handle that one.
I'll leave that one with Stefan, but just wanted to note that we are in discussions with I guess the CAPEX Society as well. We do have an interest in working with that local community group because a lot of us use CAPEC ourselves. One of our team members is from the Antigonish area, so we are looking to work with them on a potential project of sorts. But that as well more information will come on that later. But in terms of the question, I'll let Stefan answer.
Yeah, we do definitely invite the community. If you have any ideas where we could put funds to good use in the community directly surrounding this project, please let us know. Please reach out, send us an email, text us, call us. We would love to hear. Yeah, thanks for the, there it is, the contact details that you will find in the presentation on our website. Please let us know, please reach out. We worked previously throughout the province with a dozen of community liaison committees that receive funds from our projects and that have done some incredible things with those funds. So yes, you know, there are ways to receive additional funding, and please let us know whatever you have in mind.
Great, thanks. The next question that we have is, will the turbines selected be preferably made in Canada?
I can start that one.
Yeah, I didn't assign it.
Yeah.
That was my apologies. I muted myself before.
Yeah, no, and I'll try and keep it succinct, but generally speaking, there are different tiered suppliers, and typically we would use a tier 1 supplier, and there's only a few turbine manufacturers that belong to that group. One kind of important thing is that as part of the RFP, we're obligated to meet certain standards and criteria with the equipment that we use. Very few turbine suppliers can meet those criteria. They're very high standards. So the ones that do, most of those turbine manufacturers and suppliers have manufacturing plants. Typically in the Midwest US, for example, there are some components of the turbines that will come out of Europe. Steel towers will often come from China or other places like that, but it's really sort of out of the developer's control or SWEB's control to select materials that would come directly from Canada. Some things that do come from Canada for these projects is rebar. So we do use significant tonnage of rebar in concrete, and that those materials will come. The concrete would come from a local concrete company here in Nova Scotia. The rebar could come from, if there were rebar suppliers in the Maritime region, we would normally try to procure that locally. There aren't a lot of rebar suppliers in Eastern Canada or in the Atlantic region, but those project elements are more so what we could source locally in Canada or in the East Coast. I don't know if Stefan, if you have anything else to add there, but.
Yeah, no, just to support that, yeah, we do have just limited ways to oblige our supplier to source certain components within Canada. Those suppliers, as Jason mentioned, they're international companies. They have factories all over the world. What happens most of the time is then if we sign a contract with one of those suppliers, that at the time we signed the contract, the supplier itself wouldn't know where the components come from at that point in time. And they only know about a year, 1.5 years before the actual delivery begins, where those components will come from. They try to keep everything as flexible as possible because they have projects all over the world, and they need to meet their delivery timelines. So yeah, unfortunately, there's limited influence we do have there. Maybe one interesting component, though, if we talk about the benefits to the economy of Nova Scotia, there is something in the RFP that is definitely interesting. Proponents of projects are asked to show their plans of providing benefits to the local economies, and we hope that SWEB will have a benefit or will provide an extraordinary benefit to the province of Nova Scotia there, because we are based in the province. We work mostly with suppliers, service providers from the province. So New Turbines itself apart, we are confident that this project will provide a significant benefit to the local economy.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys. There's
great questions, Nancy.
Yeah,
thanks for the
I was
question.
just about to say, I am loving this line of questioning. This is fantastic. And please, please keep sending in questions now. Our entire team will be here for the next little while. If something comes up in 10 minutes from now, feel free to hop back in and ask us. As well as you can see on the screen here, continuing discussions. Our team and our project development and project managers, we're all available for contact at any time. Like Stefan said, you can call, text, email, show up in person, send letters. We will do our very best to get you the answers that you need, and we will do that in a manner that works for you. So if there is something that you would like in hard copy, we will do our best to send it to you. If you just want to have a phone call and discuss if you have questions, emails, whatever works, we are 100% available. So there's one more question here. Your two projects in Mass have very interesting environmental aspects: pollinator attractive grasses and grazing of sheep. Anything like this planned for the Weaver's Mountain project? So I see a few people looking at me as potentials for answers, but maybe Stefan, I'll start with you. Jay, maybe to you, and then I'll finish out.
No, sorry, I think I'm not necessarily prepared to answer this one. I think there's others in the group that are better equipped, but I find it a very interesting question. That's why I had to.
Yeah, the pollinator element sort of is a bit more common for solar photovoltaics, because so for a typical wind turbine or turbine project, we might use 5% of an entire optioned land. So each turbine would take about a hectare of land after construction, and that footprint we tend to keep quite clean, because if there's a gearbox failure, which is quite unlikely, or blade damage from lightning, we need access to the turbine. So we keep that sort of footprint quite tidy. But everything around that footprint we leave to regenerate, and often it's left to regenerate naturally. Sometimes if it's crown land, the crown will, a lot of crown land that we've used in the past, the crown land agencies actually prefer to have it naturally regenerate because it is a fairly small footprint. So typically with wind projects, we don't add any additional pollination metrics or anything like that. We do just leave things to regenerate. So anything around that site would be left to regenerate, and hopefully you'd have things like dandelions and pollination plant species and so on. Same with grazing of sheep. Typically that's more common with when we're using farmland for solar photovoltaics. So this is a forested area, and the landowner that we would be working with for any of these project sites, most of them wouldn't have sheep grazing there. It's an active forestry practice in those areas, so those that land use wouldn't be common in those areas at all.
But we're looking forward to seeing those sheep ourselves in the spring. So we'll send you a photo.
Yeah, worth noting, their chief operating officer is a border collie. So
Yes,
she will be on site.
Her name is Regina, and she is the I believe her formal title is director of operations, and she is excellent. So
Great.
Nancy, if you have more interesting questions like those, keep them coming. We love it.
It also doesn't have to be Nancy. Anybody can ask any questions at all. Okay, folks. Oh, hold on. There's one more. The American projects are very small compared to what is proposed here. Have you ever completed a project of this size? There's more coming, but maybe just let's focus on that part of the question. So Stefan, I'll get you to start, and then Jason, if you want to add any more information, and I'll keep an eye out for the second part here.
Sure.
Yes. So yes, you're absolutely right. Currently, the projects we have built and we're operating in the US are rather small. We do, however, have several projects in the US of significant size. And as Mason mentioned earlier, our parent company is based in Europe. Sorry, we have several offices all over Europe, and we have projects of significant size in Europe as well. So we do have the necessary experience.
Mhm.
But the US is one of our newest markets, I would say. So yeah, currently the projects are small, but we hopefully will build more and have the chance to hire more people at Halifax to plan, construct, and operate those projects in the US going forward.
If I could add something as well. So because basically every year the capacity of the turbines increases. So the number of 100 megawatts is obviously much larger than the megawatt size of the rest of our projects, but on a per turbine basis, there isn't a huge difference in constructing, like a 7 turbine project to a 12 turbine project. Just takes a bit longer. So because a lot of the projects we previously completed were with 2 megawatt turbines or 4 megawatt turbines in Maine, and these may be as high as 6, the project does seem a lot larger, but actually implementing it and constructing it is much of the same work, essentially.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I was going to add is we've certainly developed sites that are as big or larger. So we have a site in New Brunswick. It's called the Black Spruce Wind Energy Project. We co-developed that with Black & McDonald, and we were one of the projects selected as part of a larger procurement to send wind energy down to the US. Further, I think what's important is, as a company, we're sort of tracking the change in the market. So the market in general has kind of trended towards larger projects to decrease the cost of energy. So usually larger projects will have a lower cost of energy. So that's one thing that we're following along with the market. But sort of in a more broader sense, in any given year across our sort of broader team, we've certainly commissioned 90 or 110 megawatts as a group between our North American and European group together. So that's actually a bit more of a complex beast if you think about it, to finance 7 or 8 projects at the same time and then commission those all in the same year is a bit more of a complex task, and that's something that we're actually quite good at. So
thanks, folks. So we do have another question in the chat here. When do you suspect you will have a better idea of the number of turbines as well as the location of them? So Jay, I'll get you to start, and then either myself, Billy, and or Mason could probably complete some comments there.
yeah, so just generally speaking, following the timeline for the RFP, I anticipate that we'll have a fairly strong plan of record layout before the end of April. That layout will be carried through the environmental assessment process that we're currently within. So all that information will start to be published publicly, either through our website, but also through the Nova Scotia Environment website over the summer once we register the projects.
No, you hit the nail on the head that I was going to say would go through both us as well as the Nova Scotia Environment Public Review. So yeah, no, you took my comment. Okay, folks, so just keeping an eye out here for the chat. Feel free to continue to submit questions. Our team will certainly remain online here as well. And again, just a reminder, if not, feel free to reach out at a later date via email, phone, in person, whatever works best for you. Okay, folks, I'm going to give a sort of final call here for people on the webinar to submit questions. If we don't receive any within the next 2 minutes, so by 7:34, according to my clock, then we'll close the webinar. However, again, as a reminder, the slides that were presented today, as well as a transcript of the questions and the answers, will be posted to the project website. We will likely put out a notice on Facebook as well, just once we get everything up. It will likely not be until tomorrow, given the time of night right now. But folks can follow along there, and at any point, at any time, feel free to reach out to our development team or to Jason, who has his contact information on the slide here. We're available pretty much during all business hours in person as well. If you want to meet at the office or if you want anything mailed, just let us know. Okay, folks, well, that grace period here is over. So we just wanted to thank everybody for attending tonight and look forward to hearing and working with you folks more in the future. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thanks everyone for coming out.
Thank you. See ya. Take care.
Thanks all.